Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Tah Cole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow-through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
All right, welcome to the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. Supriya Prasad, peace and welcome to the podcast. How you doing today, family?
I'm doing so good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. You are a person that I came across on Instagram through a follow type of situation, and I've been intrigued with your work. I'm intrigued with what you do. I'm intrigued with who you are, and just the things that I've learned from you in the couple of moments that I've known you has been absolutely wonderful. And I love to learn from people and then apply what I learn. And I love it when things that I've learned in the past, I get to relearn and rearticulate them in different ways so that I can apply them to other things. I'm a proponent of knowledge being an ever-evolving circumstance. It's always growing and changing into something different, so I don't keep myself locked into old things. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being an inspiration. Would love to have you tell the people who you are, why you're here, and what you're doing.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What a loaded question. So yeah, I am basically an energy healer for businesses. That is what I do. We can go even way back 20 years ago. Like when I first came across the metaphysics and all of that whole world. My mother had her own awakening in her 40s. I think she was in her 40s, and just began her psychic mediumship just like that when my dad had a psychic come in as a patient my dad works in radiation ecology, by the way. He's a physicist, a scientist, by the way, which is another cool part of the story. He was a real skeptic before all this. And he had a patient in his department that was a psychic medium, and she gave everybody free readings. That was the moment his whole life changed. Both my parents went to this woman's house, and they said, me and my brother both have the gift too. You should work with them. I was really open to it. My brother, not so much at the time, but I dove into it as much as they did and developed my gifts at the age of 12, started to learn how to meditate, things like that. So it developed into this thing, went to college, did the whole, what I like to call 3D matrix sort of realm, went into business, went into marketing and all that stuff, learned all of that, and started applying it. And I was saying the last 5-6 years ago, I started my business, and I was originally a social media freelancer. And about a couple of years ago, I just decided to make the switch to coaching and went into coaching spiritual entrepreneurs on their marketing, but then had an experience when I was in Tulum, Mexico. And I got the download from Spirit when I was meditating on the beach there, doing a chakra meditation actually on the beach, saying, did you know you can do this? Did you know each chakra represents a different part of your business too? And I got that download, wrote it in my journal, and when I came back, I did a webinar on it. That webinar evolved into so many things, including the main basis of what I do in my business right now, which is the Business Chakra system.
Epic. Thank you for sharing that. The Business Chakras system is fascinating to me because the people who are listening to this podcast, a lot of them are our coaches, and the other people who listen to this take the information that we offer them and they apply it to coaching themselves and coaching their family members and such. And so chakras is something that we talk about in the Condor approach in our program. And we talk about how to actually ride the map and to see where emotional components get stored in the body and how things open up and close. Now, I am in no way, shape, or form an expert on chakras, right? I'm not. And what I've known from being a nurse, I've been a nurse for 31 years, what I've known from all this time is from the studies that I've done, I used to think they were a bunch of garbage. Oh, what is this colors and energy here and all that? I thought it was junk because I was indoctrinated into the system. When I started to apply what I was learning to my triage as a nurse, I started to see these correlations between the energy, the emotional circumstances, and the disease entities that were going on in people's bodies. And so I started to see the correlation between this and everything around me. I started to see it in the animals around me. I started to see it in the people around me. And so it started to make more sense. And so I'm always interested in knowing more and more about this. And so I learned from a woman named Maren Azoff, who taught me about the developmental stages and the spaces and the ages that are approximate for what she studied around the chakras. And I applied it and saw where that stuff worked. And so I have this mishmash of chakras that I've been growing into. And so I take what I learn and I apply it to the coaches that I teach. And it brings them this semblance of understanding that they apply in their own way. And we all have chakras, right? Like we all have arms. I apply my arms the way I apply my arms. You apply your chakras the way you apply it. And so this is exciting for me because I get to bring this to our coaches. I get to bring you to our audience of people who are interested in this. And so the pronunciation of it, I've migrated because I used to say chakras, because I didn't know anything. And so I started to, as I was studying more, I was like, yeah, that's not how it's pronounced. And that doesn't feel connected in my body. And so I started to lean more into the pronunciation of chakras. And so I see on your social media that you've been talking about it, especially recently, right? About the pronunciation, and would love to dive into, from your perspective, a couple of things. Number one, what are chakras?
Yeah. What are chakras? Chakras are energy centers in the body. Going back, like, we can even talk about like the origins of chakras and all that stuff, like in their origins, the chakras and in the body. If we want to go back to the ancient Sanskrit and the Upanishads and all that dated back to 500 to 700 BCE, there was actually a system. The energy flow is actually called nadi, which most people, and as a nurse, you know this, it's actually called fascia as we know it in our body. And so they figured out that the nadi, it actually has concentrated points, which are the centers, as we know it as the chakras, which is it's interesting. The chakras they are energy centers, and each chakra, they do have a different meaning. Like the root, for example, or muladhara is what it's called, muladhara. And that is safety, security, stability. It's the foundation. It's what, if you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the root chakra would be the survival. It would be the bottom of that. So that is what I like to call in business. And that's actually what I like to call the revenue stream, the income and the offers and the audience. That's what that would be. It really, and if you go to the sacral, is really about what I like to call the divine feminine, divine masculine, the ego, the womb center. For women, like that's the creatrix energy, right? The womb and the root chakra are intertwined because they're both in the same sort of area. Of course, they're placed differently, but the root is in the base of the spine and it's below the navel for the sacral. But they both kind of intermingle and represent similar things. So for women, it's like that womb sort of energy, the creatrix energy, and it represents creative center, and it represents what I like to call, and I have my own interpretation on this. This is like the ego, and of course in business represents, of course, inspiration, where your inspiration lies and all of that stuff, and in terms of your offers, how inspired are your offers? Are you really standing out? And are you collaborating instead of competing? Because that's a block. When it's blocked, it comes out like that in competition style. And there's also there's a balance, right? Divine feminine, divine masculine. So that's where that lies. And of course, you can go through all of them, like the Manipura, the solar plexus energy. That's the confidence. Sales and pricing. That's where I see a lot of women struggle with their pricing and being confident around their pricing. And that is where that confidence center lies. Because if you think about it, we all feel it in our gut when something's not good. We all feel it in that top navel, the top of the navel, which is where the solar plexus lies. When you don't feel confident about your sales or pricing, what you're selling, that is what the chakra is. That's when it's blocked. Anahata. And you know what's crazy? Anahata, which is heart chakra, that if you see some of the original drawings and songs in the Upanishads, These two chakras right here go together. So there were originally 5 chakras. Those two go together, and those two, if you think about it, you do make decisions with your heart and with your gut too. It's crazy to me. Not crazy, but it's wild how these work in your body. So heart is about love. We all know it as love, compassion, and empathy. But we also have to, when in business, we have to think about boundaries. We have to think about, and as empaths, and we have to think about boundaries. How does our contract look like? All of that technical aspect. Throat chakra is obviously that's the marketing, communications, your voice, your branding, your messaging, all of that stuff in there. But it's also about how authentic your voice is. How authentic are you speaking? What is your truth looking like? Because if it's not aligned, if your truth is not aligned, you're not going to be able to speak to your audience in the way that you want to your audience, and they're not going to receive it in the same way. And of course, Ahna and Sahasrara, crown and third eye, those also go together pretty well too. That's your crown, the connection to source, and what I like to call the connection to your mission, the connection with who you are. And your Ahna is your intuition, and how well can you actually see if somebody is good to work with in business, if somebody's not good to work with. Can you tell over text? Can you tell over all of this stuff? But it's also about the connection with your soul and who you are as well. So those are so good, and those energy centers just go. And then once they're aligned, it's really easy to manifest. And that's another thing I also talk about too in the business chakra system.
So awesome. Thank you so much for the rundown. It feels wonderful to hear somebody else do it, and for it to line up. Like, everything that you're saying lines up really closely with what I teach when I'm talking about chakras in the Condor approach. And so thank you for this amazing reinforcement, because I've run into some folks that I'm learning more and more that what I'm talking about is lining up. It's landing. So thank you for this. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing with businesses. This is something that I've never heard of before. I know when we spoke the first time together, you put me on to some other folks that are doing business chakras, but this is something that's totally new for me. And I believe this is something that the coaches that I teach could definitely lean into. One of the things we teach at the Condor approach is how to actually create a business structure that is sustainable. And there are a lot of coaching programs, and there are a lot of psychedelic integration coaching situations where they talk about integration, but they don't talk about creating a sustainable business. And that's something that I call financial bypassing. We are bypassing the financial situation. We're putting it that finance and money and all that is separate from this experience. It's a different experience than the one that's here. And I know in myself that my body is affected. When my money gets low, I can feel it in my body. I can feel the financial system move through my body. I can feel the energy start to shift in my body. And so this is part of what we talk about, is creating a viable structure for yourself to where you have your offers dialed in, you have your avatar dialed in, who you want to serve. Like, all the people, like, we work with so many people. Some people are psychedelic facilitators. We work with some people that are therapists. We work with some people that are trip sitters, space holders. We work with Reiki practitioners. We work with massage therapists. We work with a big, broad base of people. And the thing is, they're serving people, right? And they don't have their business chops together. And if they don't have their business chops together, they won't be viable. They won't be able to last. They'll have to work for somebody else. And that doesn't flow for them for the most part. Most of these people are entrepreneurs, and there's an energy to it. So I would love to hear from you what your vantage point is on why it's so important to have your chakras and all of this stuff in consideration and dialed in when you're creating a business structure.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. So it's so important because a lot of people, and I would say even not just the average layperson, but even spiritual entrepreneurs, I feel like they don't, and I see this more with new entrepreneurs and ones who are more into it, that have been into it for decades and decades. And even those who are into decades, they have to realize, like, your energy, you are your business, and your energy is a huge part of it. And therefore your energy centers will be affected with all of it. It's diagnose and prescribe sort of thing. Just so you understand that as a nurse, right? Like, when something is blocked, you have to get it diagnosed and prescribed. And just like any other sort of illness, just like any other sort of thing that's happening. So going down the list is, okay, is something happening in my business or my family? Because I do business chakra readings too. So I did a reading the other day where somebody was like, oh, where I saw like it was closed, but it wasn't related to her business. She was doing well with their business, but it was something in her life where she couldn't speak her voice. And when we actually dug in, we actually found out she's actually doesn't really know what her next branding message is. And we found out it was actually because she really wasn't speaking her authentic voice in her personal life as well. So these things bleed into. So it really is an integration with your life and business, because again, you are your business. And the thing is that with medium to large businesses where people have a C-suite, in that case, you actually have multiple people coming in and giving like their own energy in their business. And you would have to like not just separately read the chakras of the business, but actually see what the whole flow is happening. And then you have to diagnose and prescribe. So that's really where it all begins. It's diagnosing and prescribing what's actually really going on. And then when everything is as aligned as it can be, because each day, each chakra, because we all have those days where we can't really speak. And then something happens with our voice or throat, something really happens with our voice and throat. When you get a sore throat, you cough a lot, you have all that stuff. Something happens with your gut, something serious happens with your gut, something serious happens with the heart conditions. All of that stuff all is a physical manifestation of really what could also be going on in whatever is going around you. So everything affects your business at the end of the day. So it really all connects. And that's the bridge that I'm trying to make here, the business chakra bridge.
Thank you for that. And you said something that's really powerful. You said that you are your business. And this is something that I've been talking to my coaches about. We've spoken about this on a podcast a few times, is that this idea that when you go home, it has nothing to do with what's going on with your business. Like I keep my business life and my home life separate. That's an idea space that for me causes a disruption in the energetic field of all the things that I do. I am my business. Like it moves through me, it flows through me. When I am disrupted, my business is disrupted. When my business is disrupted, I am disrupted. And so me to be in alignment with my partner, Cole, me to be in alignment with the people on our team, all of these things are a flow space. And so when I come into a meeting and there's something going on with me that's in a funk, one of my team members is always like, hey, Tah, what's going on? They can feel it and they know. And so they actually get me to dial back in and they actually ask me, are you expressing what's going on with you? Are you holding on to something? What's happening? And that is part of me and my business becoming one entity, an organism. I start to recognize the alignment in that space. So thank you for that. What would you have to offer to somebody who's in a space where they're very adamant about this separation of business and personal life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of offerings. They're in that separation. A lot of people that come to me, they're like, I am stuck. I'm stuck and I don't know. They've tried like a lot of like different things. They either tried a lot of things or want to try a lot, like Facebook. My Facebook ads hasn't been working. My whatever website's not getting a lot of things, whatever. I hired like an SEO specialist, all that stuff. And then they're like, but I don't know. They're like, but I don't know. There's something happening and I don't know. And I'm stuck. And that's where I see that disconnect. There's something happening within their own chakra system that is preventing them from making that bridge and that connection and to align. I have a couple of offerings. So there is the group coaching program coming up called Unlock the Power of Your Business Chakras, which is coming up. We are definitely going to be starting off with a bang with all of this, with all the stuff, starting off the root chakra, everything. Each week we go over through each chakra. That's why it's 8 weeks. We do the 7, and then it's all the integration at the 8th week. It's such a beautiful program. We're going through each healing each through shadow work, through inner child healing, because that's all a part of it too. Inner child healing is such a big part of it. And when I learned my shadow work and inner child healing, and I'm consistently doing it as well, it releases so much. And people do cry like during these sessions, like people do, because emotions come up and all that stuff. Cause they're like, I didn't know that my lack of confidence actually came from when my teacher said that I would never be able to amount to anything when I was in third grade and all that stuff. Cause that all is tied to how they price themselves and how they like do all of that stuff in their business. That's all stuff I work on. Plus also the business aspect too, like creating and actually creating the offer, actually doing the offers, actually integrating all of that. And plus doing the chakra meditations, activations, not just a money mindset ritual, not just all that stuff. It's not all just that stuff. It is stuff that we constantly get integrated. And it's going to be a part of your life. This is going to be a part of your whole journey moving forward. Of course, I have the other one, work one-on-one with me. This is all stuff I do one-on-one as well. And of course we go in deep. We go in deep, and you will get some results. Like from this, you will get results. What I do, it's so much more. It's a complete transformation, like about this. It's a transformation of mind, body, soul. I've had people go make a complete 180. I have had people make a complete 180. I've had people just start from like complete zero to like now holding their own retreats, all that stuff. So
that's awesome, family. I appreciate it. And this is a huge part of what our coaches are doing is they're crafting retreats. They're crafting transformational retreats for people. They're doing all of this stuff. So this falls in tandem with what we teach in the Condor approach. And so there was something that you had said in a few moments ago when you spoke about shadow stuff coming up. Yeah. And when a person takes their business and their personal life and they separate them from one another, they create shadow. Like if I'm in my business, then my personal life is the shadow space. When I'm in my personal life, the business is in the shadow space. And so there's a shadow creation. And so shadow is when something is outside of the awareness, it's outside of the illumination of awareness in the moment of now. And so I would love to dive into the shadow work that you do and what that looks like and what maybe some examples of how you've supported people in moving through their stuff around their shadow stuff.
Oh gosh, yeah. Shadow work is interesting because I feel like there's a million different ways people do it and integrate their shadow too. I literally just go in and just with my clients, I go in and even with myself, I go in and do all of that shadow work around, and it's really around the inner child. Really, where is that when I feel hurt, when I feel crushed, when I feel rejected? Where is that? And I'm going to use rejection as an example because that is a big one when it comes to business, feeling rejected, feeling hurt and feeling like they can't do anything. I really just go into that whole inner child and going through multiple ages on that because there's usually not a first time, but it is the first time that you felt rejected. And then you do some healing work around that, which is like going in meditation deep and actually envisioning yourself having teeth. That's what I do. I envision myself, or you envision seeing yourself in your room and seeing yourself in your room, playing with yourself and playing with your child self and asking. And this is the hardest part for me and I know for a lot of people too, which is actually talking about those experiences that you've had with your inner child. And then going in deep, and you do have to make sure you're in a safe space when you do all this stuff, make sure. And that's when I do the whole protection meditation thing, because it does bring up a lot of feelings. It brings up a lot of deep, dark feelings. And what you do, and then what I do is just saying, I love you. And you know what? You're hurt right now. It feels so bad to hear that from that person. But just so you know, you grow up and this is who you are. You're so successful. This is who you are. You are so successful. And you bring that sort of love to that inner child and you hug them and you say, oh my gosh, you're doing so well. Thank you. And then of course you can do a Ho'oponopono and then also release that situation too. Tell that person I'm jumping around here, but if we were talking about money as well, I actually tell them to sing a money song around the money situation and everything's like I love money and money loves me, like going around the room and dancing with that inner child around the room and all that. But if we're talking about rejection, just say, I love him. And then, you know what? We crumple it and we let it go. We crumple it and we let it go. We release it and we play around in that atmosphere and just say, we let it go. It's free. It doesn't, it's be free. And you know what? And we say, I love you. I love you. And then we put it away and then we get back in.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for that. Child work, inner child work. In the work that I've done in psychedelic spaces and environments and transformational spaces has a lot to do with the multiple inner children. And when we have these multiple inner children that we've never really fully nurtured and we just put them in the back burner, that's the shadow creation, right? We're putting them in this box to be fixed or healed later, and we never get around to it. So thank you for doing that work with entrepreneurs, because these people, from my experience, and I can only speak from my experience, right? And the people that are in these high-powered entrepreneurial spaces or that are creating businesses, they've moved all of their trauma and their drama that they've had from their childhood out of the way. And they've just stacked so many things on top of it that these things are bubbling under the surface and wanting to come up. And those are the creative spaces. When we're children, we're super creative. When we stifle that creativity, it actually gets in the way of that full expression. And that's where I find people have thyroid issues, collarbone injuries, shoulder injuries, sore throats, tonsillitis, tonsillectomies, all sorts of lower jaw and dental issues on the bottom of the mouth, like tongue issues, always getting canker sores in the mouth on the lower side. These are the things that I've noticed with people not being able to fully express because these aspects and parts have not been fully evoked. They haven't been fully brought to the surface. So thank you for doing the inner child work with people. And inner child work is a very vogue thing right now. People are going to heal my inner child, but the depths of it, people are not really aware of it. So I'm grateful that you're bringing this stuff to the surface. That inner child work is tremendously important. And one of the things that we teach about in the Condor approach is constructs. And we teach about constructs being structures that we live within. And our identities are all constructs, right? They are constructs. And so we have the 8-year-old construct, the 7-year-old construct, the 5-year-old construct, the 10-year-old construct, all of these different identities. We have the adolescent construct, which is a conglomeration of multiple ages. We have the young adult. All of these things are spaces and they all have chakras, right? They all have these chakras. And most of them have that blockade in 2 and 5. That's my observation space. And those are the two most creative spaces in our human organisms, right? The place that we express from is the throat, and the place that we create our sexuality and all of that stuff is in the sacral chakra, right? Yep. And so these 2 and 5 are closely connected. What do you have to say about those two and the connection between those two? I would love to hear it from you.
Oh man, that is so, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. 2 to 5. I always connect with the 3 and 4-year-olds, actually, the inner childs of the 3 and 4-year-olds. And if you think about it, between 2 to 5, that is where a lot of stuff starts to develop and I think it's actually the age of 7 where your personality fully develops, but you are really using those ages are really where those developmental stages happen with your personality and your environment and everything in your environment. You're really taking it in at those specific ages. And when we think about like all of those different chakras and like the womb and all of those things, yeah, and of course, if we have trauma around any of those areas, like from the ages of 2 to 5, and we can come to 2 to 5 and even to 7 years old, even to 8, if we experience like all of that trauma, and as entrepreneurs, we store it away. It comes through our sacral, comes through the confidence area, comes through our sacral and confidence. It's all within our lower chakras, all comes within those lower chakras. If those lower chakras, we don't deal with the inner child, we don't deal with any of that stuff. If you've never really truly been to therapy, you've never done EMDR, all that stuff, it stays within you and it's going to come. And there is the argument that, I make a ton of money, in my business, and I've never really dealt with my trauma. Like my health is like poor, but I still do it. I'm like, yeah, that's totally possible. But that's because you've disconnected that part. You disconnected that whole part. You haven't really integrated it. And at some point, not sure when, it's different. It's different for everybody. Not sure when. At some point, it's all going to catch up to you. And at some point, it's going to come to a head and you're going to have to figure out what is going on. Because A, your health is something not to be messed with. And B, if you're finding that it's all going to catch up, because if you're not finding what's really happening going on with you, it's going to affect your money at some point. It's not going to affect it now. You're not going to see it now. You're not going to see it like happen, because people can manifest. They can manifest hundreds of thousands of dollars per month in their business. I've seen it happen where somebody like does that. But at some point, 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the road, they're burnt out. They have no idea what's happening with themselves. And they don't have any idea what's happening with their body. And like all of a sudden they crashed. Some people, and again, some people happens more so than others, but at some point they crash because they weren't connected. They weren't fully integrated with their mind and body. I don't know if you experienced the same thing, and I don't know if you've seen like that happen, but I have seen it happen where so many people, they have hit multiple 6 figures a year, and then all of a sudden something just happens and they just crash and they have no idea what just happened, like in their bodies and in their minds.
Yeah, I see it all the time. We call it the transformation trap.
Yeah.
Tirelessly repeating, and trap is TRAP, tirelessly repeating a painful process for the purpose of transformation. It's a trauma response. And they hit this ceiling and then it's boom, they crash. And then there's all these nightmarish things. There's a cycle that happens over and over again. And for me, what I've seen in my evaluations of things is people will get stuck in a particular chakra, and the chakra is actually, they're trying to bust through or shake that up so that the energy opens up and expands. And so they keep going back to the same thing because they haven't actually learned the lesson of how to navigate that energetic space. So yeah, again, another point that we're matching up on. I love it. This is absolutely wonderful.
Exactly. And I wanted to bring up the point, like in Hinduism, and like the chakra system goes through the Kundalini yoga, right? And there's the snakes. And in Hinduism, you see the snakes and they represent vitality. Actually, there's a snake temple near one of the places my family members went to in India, and it's actually fertility. And it's actually related to the sacral. It's directly related to the sacral. And of course, it like spirals up. And that's when you experience the Kundalini experience. However, you can experience the Kundalini when you do this sort of work too, when you do that inner child healing, when you do all that stuff, you can feel it, and they experience it as if like the snakes like coming up, but that is like the rush. It experiences the rush of energy. So I wanted to say that too.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And part of what we do, we call it chakra mapping, right? And body mapping. And so we map according to the emotional complex that's associated with the chakras. And so when a business is having challenges, or when a person who's running a business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a solo entrepreneur, solopreneur, whatever you call it, and you're running the business, what are some things that you notice in businesses where there are particular blockades in different chakras? Like, from just maybe give an example of all of them, like something that would be blocking from each one of those spaces in the business in particular.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Like I said, like whenever I do read chakras in people's bodies, like, and all that stuff too, I can personally see like a chakra for me, when something is blocked, it either goes closed like this, or it just blinks, or it just slowly blinks like that. It just slowly blinks like that. That's how I know something's blocked. However, in a business, if somebody is saying one thing like on social media, and like when I see them doing or speaking something else on their live, I think that's like a common one I see. They speak about something somewhere else where I see them, but then when we get to their program or something else, and I can just think of a couple of coaches that I used to follow like a few years ago, and they said something about, oh, this is what I do. You have to do it like this way. You have to do like emails and all this stuff like this way and this way. And then when I actually went and talked to them, they were like, oh, we don't do that anymore. We don't do this anymore. We don't like have that anymore. And I'm just like, okay, was that old? They were like, no, we just did that a couple of months ago. And I'm like, that's when I'm just like, okay, so something is off with their throat and their alignment. And then I find out about a year later that they actually didn't even want to do that program. They didn't even want to do that. They wanted to be PR people. So that's really what happens when something is not in super alignment with their throat and what they're speaking, putting out there. Now with the root chakra, I always see something whenever somebody and I don't feel a certain way about like discounts or whatever, but whenever I see it's totally fine. If you want to do a Black Friday sale, like that's totally fine to do. Like every once in a while, if you want to do like a flash sale special. But if I see somebody doing it often, and if I see somebody doing it like every week, or if I see somebody a business like saying flash sale here like every other like week, or just saying, oh, you can't work with me unless you like do 200, if you make 200 whatever a month or something like that, and they do it, and okay to do that every once in a while, just fine. But if I see somebody doing it often, that means, and it's usually a lot of smaller businesses I see do this. That's when I usually say there's something going on with the root chakra here. And of course, the big one is sacral. This is the biggest one because I see with a lot of women not a lot of women, men too. I do see this with men, the art of competing, because competing is within the sacral and the competition, and that's ego and divine feminine and womb energy and all that. When I see somebody trying to compete others, and I've seen this so much when I was like a social media freelancer, I saw somebody like literally trying to steal like clients, trying to like poach things and all that. And I'm just like, and when I go back and look at it, I was like, that's sacral, that's like the lack, that is lack, that's sacral and lack of money and all that stuff, which is also root. So root and sacral were really blocked within that. And of course, if we see somebody pricing themselves or afraid to price, somebody afraid to price themselves at $5,000, $10,000 and whatnot, or pricing themselves that's not in total alignment with who they truly are, that's Manipura energy. That's what I used to call it. And of course, heart chakra is, I don't really see a lot of people with the closed chakra. I do see more people with a really like super wide heart chakra, which imbalance is too open of something or too little. And when it's too open, that's an imbalance. It means, and then when I see it really open, like that's a lack of boundaries.
Yeah. Before you continue on, so when you say too open and lack of boundaries, you mean too open, like offering, like giving, like just connecting giving with too many things. Okay.
Yeah.
And not being open to receive.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's too open. It's too giving. They are the ones picking up the calls at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. when they're having dinner with their family. All of that stuff, or just texting somebody at 12 a.m. at night, like when they're supposed to be sleeping, stuff like that. And I see it so often with people that have that, they struggle to place boundaries in their contracts. And I do see it with people. I've seen this with people with like even 6-figure businesses too. People with people even over 6-figure businesses, they're like, oh, and they're holding on to it. And of course, it also connects to the root chakra, lack mentality, lack of all of that. And it's because they're too giving, they're too doing this, they bypass like their own client contract rules and like all that stuff. And I'm like, no, we got to put rules on that. So we got to put major rules on that. We got to make sure that they are connecting. And that leads to the audience, that leads to the throat chakra. You got to make sure the message, the confidence in the messaging is out there too. Because if you're attracting the clients like that, we got to see what else is happening within there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Thank you for those examples. I appreciate it so much. This is wonderful for me. It's highly enlightening and exciting for me in this space. So I would love to know what creative things my coaches could do to apply the chakra system to what they're doing as far as being coaches.
Oh my gosh, being mindful. I would say being mindful and being like super aware. So what you can do is you can do like I would say you can do, there's a very good chakra meditation that I used to use. I don't use it as much anymore, but when I was trying to get back in tune with my chakras, I actually did a meditation called Meditative Mind for about an hour. And I used to do it for an hour, didn't do it as much, but it's with the seed chakra meditations. The seed chakra meditations would actually say the lam, the ram, the vam, all of that. So seed chakra. And they can actually feel and connect with their chakras. So I have noticed, and of course this is me, but my hand does get hot my hand gets hot every time, and I will go onto a different chakra. And if I feel like, I will get a physical reaction if something is blocked within my chakra, I will get this is just me. And some people will get that too. Some people will feel certain ways. But if they notice like something is happening with their business, oh, my money flow is like not really working well and all that stuff, they can do a sound, they can do frequency meditation, go through each chakra.
So
and
what are the sounds? Can you hit us with the sounds from each chakra?
I don't know the exact sound. The one for the heart chakra, I believe it's the miracle frequency. It's either 528, 428 frequency. That's the heart. That's the one with the love. And so crazy, because if you know about the Schumann resonance that happened recently, which the Earth's heartbeat was at the highest frequency it's ever been. And this was like a month ago. And that energy was like there. And like, that was the beat of the Earth. And I feel, and I could be wrong about it, but it was almost like the same miracle frequency beat at that same one. I feel like it's the 428 frequency. Right. So that one is, yeah. And I think that one was for the heart. And that's why it's called the Earth's heartbeat. That one is for the heart. And you can do different frequencies. I know Meditative Mind has amazing ones. They have amazing frequencies for every single chakra. I can't name on the top of my head.
What are the sounds though? What are the sounds?
Oh, like the seed chakra, chants. Yes. So the Muladhara is Lam. And the Islam, so you go and you can actually go and put your handle and navel, the base of the spine, hands, and actually speak. And you can go like that, speak and do that tone. And it's the frequency of the earth. So it actually calls out, that Lam actually goes out to the earth. It actually doesn't call the chakra. That's a common misconception. It doesn't go to the chakra. It actually calls out the elements of the earth. And like sacral is Vam, and you can go Ram, and heart is Yum, throat is Hum, and these two you can actually interchange. This one, it can be or Om, and you can either do, or just, you don't have to do anything with the crown at all. You can just actually sit in silence with that. And those are free, and those are the frequencies you can actually use for your own self and have that tone. We have those tones. They're really good frequencies. And if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend the ones by Meditative Mind on YouTube if you want to use those. But those are the seed chakra chants are extremely useful. It's extremely useful, especially if you really want to start to go through each chakra and start to really figure out what your blockages are.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to send people to that YouTube thing, but I want to send people to you.
Yeah.
So I want to send people to you so that they can experience you, because my experience of you is amazing. This is amazing for me. And so what can people retrieve from you? What can they get from you? What do you have for them?
Oh, yeah.
People. Yeah.
I have a couple of different services. So like I said, I have the one-on-one. You can either work with me one-on-one, and we do the whole business chakra thing. We do go through a lot of the chakras. I start with the business chakra reading, and then simultaneously at the same time, we actually go through your business. We do go through your business and actually come up with the strategy for you. The other thing is the group coaching, which is coming up on August 8th, Lionsgate. And we do like a similar thing, but we go through it each week. And 8th week, we go and integrate everything that you've learned on that. There is another thing that I do, which is, of course, business chakra readings. That's actually something I offer, and that's a taste. If people don't know what they want to do, you could just do a business chakra reading with me. And of course, they can also do a strategy reading, which I do a business chakra reading first and then do the strategy. So that's actually another thing. There's a strategy, and then there's the business chakra readings that they can actually do. So those are the other services I offer.
So juicy. Thank you for that. And so what's the best way for people is the best thing to get on a call with you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you have a link and all that for people to call you. Cool. I'm going to make sure that's in the show notes because I want people to hit you directly because you have to experience Supriya. Like she's an experience, y'all. You got to experience her, and so knowledgeable and so wonderfully profound and opening and welcoming and fun. I'm going to make sure that the link to book a call with you is in the show notes. When people are working with you one-on-one, what is that? Is it over a year? Is it over 6 months? How does that work?
3 months. It's a 3-month minimum. I do recommend 6 months to work with me so you could truly integrate and truly experience, but it is a minimum of 3 months.
And is that like a weekly coaching call? What is that like?
Weekly coaching call. Yep. Weekly coaching call once a week. And then with my one-on-one, you can actually get unlimited text, unlimited calls, Boxer, and of course, an additional 15-minute call for anything that you're stuck on and any additional questions you have during the week.
Come on. You're generous. Come on. Let's go, y'all. Let's go. Sign on up. And the 8-week coaching container is a group coaching. How big are your groups?
It's 5 to 10 people for this group. I am planning on doing it twice a year. The next one would be in the next 6 months after that.
Awesome. And who's the ideal person you're looking for in that space?
Anybody who's really looking, who has a spiritual coach, a life coach, ideally, who is looking to integrate something else like in their programs, and that wants to really not only learn more about their chakras, but truly learn how to heal themselves and heal others. Like a Reiki practitioner, anybody who is really in the healing space, trauma-informed coaches, people like that, I'm looking for. It tends to be women. That's who I seem to attract, but it can be men too. It can be anybody, really.
Sweet. Thank you. Wonderful. And so we're coming to the top of the hour, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up. The pronunciation, and we started off talking about this, the pronunciation of chakras, right?
Yeah.
And chakras. And so this is a place that I've been in an evolution with how I pronounce it. What is so important about the pronunciation of chakras?
Pronunciation is really important because there is a history with chakras. The history of chakras goes way back from what I said, the 500 to 700 BCE. And it's been completely westernized and colonized, I should say, in Western culture. And the whole chakras and all of that stuff, that all came from a book by Christopher Hill. And I forget what the name is called, Evolution something. And actually, he's the one that came up with the rainbow chakras for the colors. So chakras, by the way, didn't have a color system like in the ancient times. They did have some colors associations with it, but it wasn't a main thing. But I do feel like him, and there was also another guy that actually got the chakra system into the West, that I feel like that is where the chakras came from, the whole chakra pronunciation. But it is chakras. It does come from the ancient system. It does come from a long lineage, and it's colonialism. And in my video, you would hear me say colonialism bullshit. Because that's what I say. Because honestly, because the pronunciation is really like a name. It's really like my name. I have heard people say, oh, can I call you Sue? Or can I call you like something else? I'm like, can I call you Pretty? Can I call you whatever? I'm just like, no, my name is Supriya. Like it means beloved in Sanskrit. It's similar to chakras. Chakras, like in all that stuff. Chakras has like it's about the energy centers. And of course, Nadi, which nobody really knows about, fascia in the body. And that's where really it all comes from. It comes from that sort of system. And people don't realize that. It's just like a lot of people I feel like I talk to, they know like it's an ancient system, but they don't know the deep history that it comes from and all that stuff. This is older than the pyramids. Chakras are older than pyramids. You know what I mean?
The people are older than the pyramids. So people have been around longer than somebody had to build the pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the system, honoring that system, I hear that. And I'm always interested in learning different frequency tones. And when I started to actually shift from saying chakras to chakras, I had to slow down. And I actually start to feel it in my body when I say it. It's like when somebody says tal or tab or tan, and that's not my name. My name is Tah. My name is, can you say and put a T at the beginning? Slow down. Take your time. You don't have to rush through my name. There's a sound to it. And so honoring that sound brings it back into, I don't think it was named Chakras for no reason, right? It wasn't named Chakras for no reason. And so the honoring of that, of the sound quality situation is important to me. So thank you for reinforcing that, because that's something that I've been moving into. When we had our first conversation, you were like, oh, I love the way you pronounce it. I'm like, look, girl, I'm working on it. And so listen, I live in a world where where colonialism was and still is a huge thing in a lot of spaces in our world. And there's been a blockade to us understanding history, to us understanding traditions, understanding cultures from the past and all of these things. And as we start to open things up and become more aware of these things, we start to illuminate the shadow aspects of bypassing how things are pronounced, how things are sung. You wouldn't be like doing your meditations and be like, there's a benefit to having these sounds the way they are. So thank you for honoring that. And thank you for jumping in on that question, because it's been on my mind since I saw your last, I think it was a couple of days ago, you posted.
Yeah, I posted it.
Yeah. And the passion and the heat in your voice was wonderful. I loved it. Listen, I'm passionate about the things that sit with me. So thank you for being in your truth and in your passion. Oh, and with that, where can people find you on social media?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Supriya, SUPRIYA digital, DIGITAL, on there. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Supriya in /Supriya Prasad on LinkedIn. And I will be starting a YouTube fairly soon under the same Supriya.digital very soon. So coming soon, my own YouTube channel.
Sweet. Thank you so much. I appreciate you rocking with us on the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the folks? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, just remember, a big takeaway I feel that people should take from this is that you are your energy and your energy is your business. And when you learn that you can heal your energy, you can learn to heal your business and really your life.
Thank you so much, family. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for rocking with me. Thank you for rocking with the people. Thank you all so much for listening and tuning in to the Psychedelic Coach Podcast. I love you. I love you in ways that words just do not describe. So I'll just leave it at that. I love you. Thank you for being who you are. And remember, in the last 400 years, it took 4,000 people to come together to make each one of you who are listening. 4,000 people in the last 400 years. There's nothing not special about you. There's nothing not wonderful about you. I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you, Sourcey Poo. You are magical. And don't forget,
integration is not optional.